Well, if you're like me who eats outside quite a lot because work simply doesn't allow you to bring food from home or spend time to just enjoy, as they call it, home chore, then what happened with Marwako should really be of concern. If it's a concern to me, it should be of concern to you. So we're going to spend some time talking about this. Selling poison to the public. Is Marwako the tip of the iceberg? It's really the only question you should be asking right now, and that's a question I ask myself. And so I'm going to put together a few people who understand this area for a conversation tonight. At the end of the day, we'll also get some tips on how do you spot before you put that food in your tummy if this food may have some concerns, some health issues for you. Because look, we'll go to the slides. You see the data showing that there are people in this country who die from food poisoning. So stay with me. Let's go through this a bit more. We know that the FDA issued a statement yesterday about this Marwako matter and the food poisoning. And all Marwako branches have now remained closed. Marwako is still under monitoring. The thing that struck me about the statement, I'll bring to you shortly towards the end in this statement, about the heavy microbial load they found in the food that Marwako was selling. It was poisonous. It's a food-borne disease. And they also found that the food that was sold at other branches like Abelinkwe, they were heavily, those are the words, heavily contaminated. So chew on that for a minute, because I'm sure many of you were customers and patronizing from Marwako and other places as well. Now, we know that as a result of this, there have been sanctions that have been imposed. The FDA has imposed a 750,000 cedi fine on Marwako right now, and so that is one of the key things that we know for sure that they have to pay. We'll tell you how they came about it, because Marwako, the findings also say that they failed to observe the appropriate sanitary practices leading to the widespread food poisoning. So sanitation was a key problem, as found by the FDA in its probe. And also, if you look at the key things as far as the law is concerned, and this is something that you need to pay attention to if you're going to buy food elsewhere. FDA tells us that Marwako breached 15 sections of the Public Health Act, right? And each violation is classified as a high risk based on Marwako's magnitude. And so if you do a breakdown of it, each of it, the 15 breaches, each of it will carry a fine of 50,000 cedis. And so if you're 15, that's a total of 750,000 cedis that Marwako has to pay. We'll find out if they have actually paid this fine already. And Marwako reacted to it yesterday, and they were asking for an independent investigation because they were raising a few questions about the outcome of the probe. But let's look at the big picture, because this is important. Let's expand this beyond Marwako, because it's not a Marwako problem. It could be possibly a bigger problem that you haven't discovered yet. You may have been unwell and not linked it to the food you had recently eaten, right? So let's begin to pay attention to the numbers a bit more. Now, this is the FDA 2020 annual report, and it tracks what the situation is when it comes to foodborne disease, number of outbreaks. In 2018, FDA recorded 14 foodborne disease outbreaks. 14 foodborne disease outbreaks. So this is a significant number, 14, right? And you begin to wonder how many people were affected in this foodborne outbreak. The Marwako one is one of those. Several, many, more than 20 people were affected by the Marwako incident. If we go to 2019, FDA records 4 foodborne disease outbreaks, and then in 2020, they record 5. You may have been one of those affected in 2020, but you may not know, right? You ate somewhere that you can't really figure out. Now, if you come to foodborne disease, number of persons affected. Now, let's draw back. In 2018, 161 people were affected by the foodborne disease outbreaks, according to FDA. And now I must emphasize, this is because this is the reported cases. So like Marwako, when the social media thing exploded, then it became an issue. Then we got to know. So FDA can then record that. But you can fairly say that this is grossly underestimating the number of people who have been affected, because many people will just go to the hospital and suffer and may not necessarily link it to the food they are eating or to a particular restaurant and they will be told food poisoning, and they'll be scratching their heads and wondering what happened to me. FDA will never know about it, and so it will not be recorded. So that is a key thing. In 2019, zero, right? Although they recorded 4 outbreaks, they had 0. So you could see there's a disconnect there, right? If they can't find people who are saying, listen, the outbreak affected me, they don't record it. So it's 0 here in official records, but in reality, there are people behind the numbers, 4 outbreaks, who may have suffered, right? And if we come to 2020, 101 people affected by foodborne disease, food poisoning, stuff that you're eating out there, that you're buying on the street, your favorite kinky joint, wachi joint, etc. Killing people, right? I say killing people because this is the FDA's own numbers telling us that same story. The FDA 2020 annual report, number of deaths associated with the foodborne disease in 2018, 11 people died. So this is a life or death matter. We may be playing with it, but 11 people, according to FDA, died in 2018 because of the food they ate. Where they ate it, you may go to your fancy restaurant, but you don't know what is happening behind the closed door in the kitchen, right? And if you think about it, 11 deaths, it's alarming just because of food, right? So that's the situation there. Now, I want to bring you the statement that the FDA issued, because there are some details in that statement that I want to highlight for you to pay attention to when it relates to the Marwako incident. And one of the key things they had said there is the finding of the, as it relates to the microbial load, because they found in here that when the specific situation happened in East Legon, the East Legon branch of Marwako, right? If you go to the East Legon branch of Marwako, it says here that they took samples, right? Fruit juice, so they analyzed samples of some food, some juice, and swabs were taken from the environment at East Legon branch of Marwako Fast Food Limited. And this is what they found. It indicated that there was a heavy microbial load, pathogens, which may be linked to foodborne disease reported there. So there was poisoning in the food, right? That stuff that could cause you to be severely ill, and as you've seen, possibly even cause fatality. And then samples collected from the Abelinkwe and La branches were also found to be heavily contaminated, heavily. So you can just imagine what people were consuming, thinking this is a fancy restaurant and the food is secure and safe. But in essence, FDA says you were eating poison, right? Now, the levels of sanitation and hygiene in the food preparation areas in all 3 facilities were poor. That's according to the FDA, were poor. So sanitation, hygiene, food preparation areas were poor. And I like the fact about food preparation areas. Where you go and buy the food, the front office, where you sit and eat, it's almost often very beautiful. Nice environment, they have flowers, AC, television. So you eat there and you think this is a very hygienic place. But where we don't see is the food preparation areas, is the kitchen. You don't see where the food is coming from. What you see is what you see in the restaurant itself. The nice, ladies and gentlemen will come to your table and serve you food, and you sit in the comfort of that. You think you're a big boy, eating food in a nice restaurant, and it's a status symbol. But what FDA is telling us is the focus should be on the food preparation areas. The question is, for us consumers, there's no way we can find out what's happening here. FDA has the power to do so. So are they doing this properly on our behalf? Because if they're doing so, then we don't have to worry about the kitchen, because no restaurant will allow you into the kitchen, right? But that is where the problem is. And so you need to be aware. Now, I also want to show you something in the next slide from this that they issued. And they found that there may have been evidence tampering, for destruction of evidence by the Marwako. It says they found that the the process to establish the root cause of the contamination has been unfortunately hampered by the unapproved and unilateral decision of the management of Marwako to destroy some of the food items whilst the investigation was in progress. Because FDA said, the law says, if they close you down and are investigating, you want to make sure that everything that you were cooking and you're preparing should be there so that they can test. But they found that Marwako destroyed the evidence, and they say it is unilateral. And so they've imposed a sanction. But think about this. Could this be a tip of the iceberg? That's a conversation we're about to have here on PM Express when my guests join me. FDA is joining me, Bureau of Public Safety. We're having the hotels, the hospitality industry, the restaurant operators, the victims are all joining me on PM Express for a conversation on this. We all eat. Food is something we all can do without. And so this is a big conversation. If what you eat will cause your death instantly, it's a big deal. My guests joining me for a conversation on this. Poison in the food. Stay with me. Thank you very much for joining us and staying with us on PM Express. If you eat food, like all of us, as humans, you can't avoid it, then this is a conversation you need to be paying attention to. I am looking forward to this. Joining me in the studio is Joseph Benny. He is the Director of Legal and Corporate Affairs at the Food and Drugs Authority, the FDA. Dr. Edward Aka Nyamike, Jr. He's the president of the Ghana Hotels Association, and the hotels always run, they cook the food and they serve, they have restaurants, etc. So we want to hear their thoughts on this big conversation. Nanaya Akwada is the executive director of the Bureau of Public Safety, joining us. And then Richard Yeboah was a victim of the Marwako incident. And we'll get to hear his thoughts on what happened to him and his reaction to the sanctions that have been imposed by FDA. But now, Akwada, let me start with you. So we've seen the sanctions that have been imposed, and we've heard from Marwako also. Is it adequate to deter others, for example, from what we've seen?
Well, I think good evening to your viewers and to my fellow panelists. I think that as far as the actions of the FDA are concerned, one cannot fault them for the actions they've taken. As to its adequacy, I believe that in the course of the show, we should be able to establish that. From where I sit and from my being in this space in the last couple of years, nearly 2 decades, I think that we have not strengthened the structures to work as they ought to. And that even the FDA coming in from the top, I think that seems to me like an overkill, and it will not really solve the problem of food safety in our country the way we would want to see it solved. But these are just my preliminary comments.
Yeah,
because
and I guess the big question on the back of Marwako is Marwako an isolated incident, or is it tip of the iceberg?
No, Marwako is not an isolation at all. I don't want to say it's a tip of the iceberg. It's far worse than describing it as a tip of the iceberg. Look, food safety in our country is nothing you want to write home about. We are living merely at the mercy of our own immune system. I'm yet to see people really rise up to food safety standards. It's good we have someone from the hotels, on the panel. Maybe he would speak to all that. But there are various institutions who are all tasked to ensure that food safety is guaranteed. As to whether these institutions are working or that the entities themselves who are self-regulating, I believe that by the time we are done with this program, we will know. As far as we are concerned, we believe largely, and we have observed largely, that these institutions are not as active or as working as they ought to. And that most of the things, I shudder to put it, my head on the chopping board now, that probably our friend from the hotel will be sharing with us will probably be their own self-regulations. And in any industrial space, this will not be or should not be enough to regulate the space for us as far as food safety is concerned.
I mean, Mr. Nyameke, so we had the story with Marwako. Many people got hospitalized, some of them with severe disease infections. As FDA said, they found the heavy microbial load that could cause the foodborne disease. You work in a hotels industry, of course, and you are the president of the Ghana Hotels Association. When the Marwako story broke, I wonder what thought processes went through your mind about the way the hotels themselves, as one of those places where we all go to eat, what a conversation was. Did you feel confident that if my guests here beside me at FDA showed up at random to many of your members' hotels and their kitchens right now, they may not find some of the evidence they found in Marwako?
Evans, thanks so much for the opportunity, and good evening to your viewers. Indeed, the Marwako story was quite a scare to all of us. And then you are right in saying that I related to the hotel industry. But my consolation with regards to the hotel industry is, please, for the hotels which are registered and licensed, the Ghana Tourism Authority, there is that regulation with regards to the various bodies that ensures that the right thing is done. The only challenge that we have, and I think Nanaya was implying that, is that frequency of licensing or the inspections that we get these regulatory bodies. Now, every hotel which operates a restaurant needs to get what we call the food hygiene permit. Mm-hmm. That is given by the Food and Drugs Authority. But that assessment is done once a year. Once a year. And of course, we are giving prior notice to the inspection. So you would expect that every hotel will be at its best when they expect the Food and Drugs Authority. What we usually don't get is those random inspection that could take people off guard or to take the hotels off guard to see what they do when they are not expecting the FDAs. But the good thing about that annual inspection, though, is that it's not just related to the food, but they also have other requirements. For instance, they expect to see some regular fumigation, and not just any fumigation at all, but fumigation by companies that are duly registered by the Environmental Protection Agencies. And then also, they also expect that you also have that EPA, Environmental Protection Agency license itself. Then they look at your records, the source of your food ingredients, the hygiene certificates or the public health certificates obtained by your kitchen staff from the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. And then they also require that you have your standard operating practice or procedures.
And which agency is inspecting all this? Still FDA?
Oh, still FDA.
Okay.
Still FDA. They do all that. They look at your records. They look at even the washrooms for your staff, washroom for guests, access to detergents for cleaning the food preparation areas, and also access to clean water. They look at sanitation, how you dispose of your refuse. They look at all those things. So for that period of inspection, you can bet that all these things are checked and every hotel will be on alert. But the challenge, as I indicated, is After that inspection, there's a whole year gap where the next inspection will take place. And as to what happens between those periods, it's very difficult to tell. But you see, Evans, the only good thing with regards to the hotels is that apart from regulation, they also have their image to protect. They have their customers to keep. Okay, and you can bet that whatever happened at the Marwako restaurant is certainly going to affect patronage, which is what no hotel wants to experience. So beyond FDA coming to inspect, to give you the food hygiene, because if they don't give to you, then that means you can't serve food, you can't prepare food, you can't do anything concerning food at your premise. And you know that food is a very important segment of our business. So much as we keep to the regulation to ensure that the hotels have their food hygiene permits, hotels are also concerned, first of all, about their customers. They're also concerned very much about their staff, and they do everything.
So, do I hear you say that self-regulation, because of the potential to lose customers and destroy a brand, is more of an incentive for the hotels to keep their restaurants, meeting the regulatory requirements than necessarily the one-off pre-announced inspection that they get every year?
Evans, I think we're on the same page with that. You see, the FDA becomes important to the extent that without the permit, you cannot operate.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's once a year. But beyond that, no hotel will focus on just the permit. They will look at how to ensure that they keep their clients safe and then their staff safe as well. So you're right on that.
So, and again, and I like your honesty about, because you are the president, you're being honest about this. And that if FDA should be more regular with unannounced visits to the restaurants of hotels, etc., you're confident that they will find things there that they wouldn't have found with the pre-announced annual, inspections.
Evans, let me put it this way. You see, when we talk about the hotel industry, it's a wide range from budget hotels, 1-star, 2, 3, 4, up to 5-star hotels. Okay, so we need to bear in mind this wide range. And if in the industry, the budget and 1-star form about 60 to 65% of the total hotel population. Now, you are right. I mean, if FDA should do that random inspections, I bet you that some hotels may be caught off guard. That one, it's okay. Highly possible.
Okay, so that's honest. That's the boss of the Hotel Association telling you that your current regime of inspections is ineffective to stop Marwako from happening again in the hotel restaurants. What do you say to that?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and regards to viewers and to the other panel members. Yes, the point well made, but there's a slight correction I have to make to that.
Okay.
Yes, when you apply for a license or a permit, food hygiene permit, we conduct an inspection at the facility. We call that pre-license inspection. When we conduct that inspection and we find issues, we come for a second inspection, we call a follow-up. In almost every situation, you have to do a follow-up. So inspection for licensing is at least twice before the license is issued. When the license is issued, we conduct post-licensing inspections, especially what we term as the unannounced inspections. These are risk-based. Let me explain. There are facilities you inspect once a year after the licensing has been done, once a year, based on the risk level. Because the non-compliances you have observed and the reaction or the action of the facility to address those non-conformances are such that you are sure that things will work out very well for you. So once a year, you conduct a post-licensing inspection unannounced. For facilities that the risk levels are high, we conduct unannounced inspections more than once. What happens is that these facilities, you do not inform them that you're coming for an unannounced inspection. That is what it is meant to be. So you may not, I don't know which facilities where he is, but I'm not holding brief for anybody.
Yeah, but
we conduct, he's the president, but he may not be. No, I will not.
So you're saying that you do unannounced inspections of the hotels, restaurants?
A lot of unannounced inspections within the year before the relicensure. Because once a year, there's supposed to be an unannounced inspection.
Yeah, so I like your phrase, supposed to be.
So I'm coming back to that.
Supposed to be, but is that actually happening?
It happens. We may not visit every single facility. That is the truth. But we visit a lot of these facilities unannounced. And I believe that if you give the opportunity to hoteliers and those who run restaurants, they will confirm to you. There are a lot of unannounced inspections that we carry out between the two inspections that leads to the licensing and re-licensing. Depending on, like I said, the risk level. It could be once, it could be twice. But once we know that a facility has been put on a high risk level, that inspection is carried out more than once or twice in a year.
So you're saying that once you're licensed, the license has to be renewed?
Yes.
For the renewal, you have to obviously inspect again before you issue a renewal.
Definitely.
Okay. He says that renewal process comes with a pre-announced visit.
Yes, for that renewal, you announce that you are coming for.
Okay.
In between the two inspections.
So when you say that when you announce you're coming, you go when you do it, and you renew the license for the person, between that, his point, between that and the next year, you're saying that in between that gap, there
is an unannounced inspection. And the unannounced inspection, the number or frequency of it will depend on the risk level of because we cannot visit every single restaurant, every single food service establishment more than once a year. So you strategize.
Can I put it? The overwhelming majority, let's stick with hotel before we come to the higher risk ones like restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
The overwhelming majority of them, you don't do the unannounced.
We do at least once a year.
Unannounced. After the renewal visit.
After the renewal. There may be some you may, granted, we may not be able to do it for every single facility.
Yes.
That is granted. But for the majority of them, based on what we have observed prior to the licensing and post-licensing, we do the unannounced inspection.
When you say high risk, which are the high risk facilities?
You go to a facility and we'll see a number of non-conformances. When we say non-conformances, situations that do not conform to what you expect a facility to do. You see things that are not being done right. So, based on the number of non-conformances you observe, you give out certain recommendations, and then they are supposed to implement them. Following the unannounced inspection, after those non-conformances have been addressed, if you go and see a certain number of non-conformances again, based on this, so the number of non-conformances you see, the frequency at which you see these non-conformances are some of the reasons or the basis upon which you put a facility at a high or low risk or a medium risk. And that determines the number of unannounced inspections you want to conduct between the two annual inspections that you conduct for licensing and relicensing.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but you admit that, first of all, the challenge is you don't have enough men. You don't have the resources.
That is it. That is why we do the risk-based inspections of the facilities, because if we have such numbers, we'll be doing.
Marwako was high risk.
Marwako now can be classified as a high risk.
Before the incident, where were they?
Before the Marwako wasn't a high risk. We were there in December, and let me also before the day before, the 2 days before the incident happened, we were at the Sprinters Road facility. So
exactly, because you're about to license that.
Yes. So we were there. Yeah. We've made some observations.
But of course, I mean, as for that, they will make sure the house is in order.
But still, you find non-conformances, and indeed, we found some. Yes. So
they were not higher risk before the incident.
Before then,
were they medium risk or low risk?
We will put them at medium risk. But what happened was that after the incident, in fact, we have been at the place earlier. Even the East Legon branch, we've been there earlier. We've seen some things that we've asked them to work on. So they were in the process of implementing some of these things before this incident happened on Mother's Day.
So it might cause a lot of in question that if you were doing this and you were doing it regularly unannounced, why didn't you catch on to the problem that happened? Because you've have said that they were giving you, even when they were pre-licensed and you found issues.
Yes. It happens with every facility that you visit. Every facility you find something.
But that's a fail of monitoring, is it not?
No, it is not. Once you observe non-conformances, you issue out the non-conformances report to the facility. The facility is supposed to come up with what we call the corrective actions and preventive actions, CAPA. So once they issue
you allow them to still sell whilst they correct? Depending
on the level of risk you found. If it is a high, if something that is high, that can be, for example.
So, I guess my question is, why do you allow high-risk restaurants to still operate?
No, you will not allow a high-risk facility to operate.
But you told me that you have a ranking, high, medium, low.
Yes.
And the level of risk determines your regularity, the frequency of your...
Okay, I get your question.
So what it means is that the higher risk are operating, just that you are just visiting them more often.
Yes, because you've given them non-conformances report, they brought you the CAPA, corrective and preventive action, and they are implementing it.
Yeah, but that's my point.
No.
Why should they be allowed to be implementing when it's high risk, shut down, implement, reopen?
Let me clarify that. You get non-conformances. It's not every non-conformance that is a high risk. Let me give you an example. You go to a facility and they don't have liquid, a good detergent at a place for consumers to wash their hands. It's a non-conformance.
Yeah, but that can be high risk.
I'm coming. It's a non-conformance. Yeah. You go there and the next visit, they've put they've provided the hand washing facility or the detergent. Will you say that because it was a high risk?
I guess the question
idea,
the question I will ask you, what goes into the determination? What are the variables you consider to determine somebody is high risk and restaurant is high risk?
Things that when they occur and are not corrected can result in a client, somebody eating from that facility, ending up in a hospital or ending up with a disease conditions. Those are things that are high risk.
Okay, but as we speak tonight, there are restaurants in Accra categorized as high risk.
Yes.
So why are they operating?
They are high risk because you've seen those conditions there. You've given them, they've implemented the corrective action, maybe because of the frequency at which you have seen it. They've done it today. You've gone there the second time. They've done it. You've seen the same or a similar situation. They've corrected it. That is why you need to have a higher number of inspections to ensure that consistently you keep an eye on them. They are high risk, so you keep an eye on them so that they continuously do the right.
As a consumer who eats outside, I submit to you that if you realize that the person is high risk, so isn't it better to shut it down and then you say, like you've done to Marwako, you say, Marwako, fix it. When you are satisfied, then you open. Isn't that a better approach?
Let me explain.
And allow the person to continue.
The understanding of the high risk is an issue.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that one. The facility has been classified as a high risk because you've identified high risk factors there.
Yes.
You've asked them to correct. They've corrected it, and they are working. But you place them on high risk because you found a certain number of risk factors there. They've corrected. You don't.
But it can be. Sorry, I submit to you. So wait, you go there today. You find variables that you describe that make them high risk. Question I'm asking you, before you leave, do you do what you did to Marwako and say close?
Yes.
Yes. Shut it down?
Yes.
Do you shut it down?
We do.
But you didn't say that.
No, that's what I'm saying. That you asked them to do the correction.
No, okay. So, wait. So again, let's track back. So your officers go to restaurant A. You find variables that makes them high risk. Before you leave, do you close them down?
Oh yes.
Do you shut them down?
Oh, we shut down. Most of them they will tell you.
In Accra here?
In Accra.
Which restaurants have you shut down?
I will not be able to give you off my head, but we give you immediate, let us suspend production. That is the term we use most of the time.
In Accra here? When was the last time that happened?
In Accra and in other regions. We suspend operations. And
when was the last time? In your report,
not the last.
In your report, I put up in your 2020 FDA report, there's no mention there about any restaurant that has been closed down before.
No, that was not a report about restaurants that have been closed down.
No. But it's a report that talks about food poisoning cases that you found, how many people were hurt, how many people died. In that, definitely, if you shut people places down, you should
you would not have heard about Marwako being shut down if it has not come out into social media.
Yeah, so, but
we would have done that without.
So that's what I'm asking you. In the last year, there are restaurants that you've classified as high risk. Which of them have you closed down?
You close them down, not for a long period as this.
No.
I'm telling you, it may happen within 2-3 days.
Yeah, but
they have to.
Even if it's a day, I'm asking you.
Oh, there's a number of them. I can't mention. I know I don't have. I didn't know about it. I would have gotten a list for you.
Okay.
But you shut them down not as long as this is happening, because it's something that they may take a day or two to correct. So for that period, you suspend production. They may fix that within 2-3 days, and we are going. We don't need to come out and announce this as because this happened because it got into social media, it got out there. Yeah. But we do that regularly without having to scare anybody, tell the public that this is, you put, and when we shut down a facility, when we close down a facility, like the notice we put down on Marwako, we put that notice just there. So people will not go there to go and eat. It is there. This facility is closed. So for that period that we are working to ensure that those corrections are made, that facility is shut down. We don't really have to come out and announce these things to the public.
Okay. Mr. Kwada, so those are the details of the monitoring on the back of what we've heard. What was your reaction?
Well, it's interesting, but look, let me share with you that when Marwako story broke out, we took the position that FDA should have been more of a final arbiter of the matter. Listening to the man in the studio, I'm sorry I did not get his name.
It's Mr. Benny, Joseph Benny, Mr. Benny.
Yeah, listening to Mr. Benny, you can see clearly that the FDA itself in this particular matter, they have bitten more than they can chew, because the questions you are putting to him and the responses that are coming from Mr. Benny are not very satisfactory. I'm sorry to say this, but the FDA is supervising food, supervising drugs, is supervising medical devices, vaccines, cosmetics, and so on. So many other things. And at the top there, most countries leave their Food and Drugs Authority at the top. And I do not know which aspects of their mandate, makes them go so deep in the belly of things. Because I would want to see my FDA remain at the broad enterprise level, food manufacture, of course, drugs, vaccines, and all those things. But for the FDA to descend into preparation of food, when in actual sense we have the public health department of the city authority. So if you come to TMA, there is a public health unit, the AMA has it, KMA has it, all the MAs and the DH you could think about. They all have this public health department. Indeed, in 2012, the Bureau of Public Safety took on an eatery in Tema. And when we took them on, we went straight to the public health department of the Tema Metropolitan Assembly. They came in and, took this eatery to court. After 8 months back and forth, the facility was asked to go back and do the right thing. They were fined. And I think that is how it should be. If the public health unit of the city authority moves in, because normally that is their job. That is what they are supposed to do. They are everywhere. The FDA, clearly Mr. Bennett was telling you, they visit majority of the facilities. That you and I know cannot be entirely true. You understand? Because which facilities are we talking about? The president here have indicated to us they have 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotels. How many of these does the FBI visit? How many of these companies do they test their refrigeration system? The same FDA is supposed to ensure that poultry products, meat, and all those things that are coming into the system are wholesome. But as to the preparation and all those things, I think that it should be for the public health unit of the assembly that should have moved into Marwako, inspected their products, and picked samples for the FDA to advise them on the wholesomeness or whatever that it is. It is because they descended from that high up to the bottom. That's how come Marwako can destroy evidence. It is because they are taking spaces that ordinarily they should not be taking. Is making the work too broad for them. Look.
Okay. Stay with me. And I see Richard Iboa is a victim of the Marwako food poisoning. I'll get his thoughts on and get his reactions to the actions that has been taken by FDA shortly. Yes, you will have something to react to.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It appears he doesn't appreciate the mandate of the FDA. In his own submission, he says he went to whichever...
An eatery.
And he reported the incident somewhere. And he says they went to court. It took eight months for the issue to be resolved. And 8 months compared to what is happening now for FDA to resolve an issue, which one are we talking about as being effective?
Yours is quicker.
Which one are we talking about being effective? If you understand the mandate of the FDA is doing what is being mandated to do. Food service establishments, restaurants, places where food is provided, the safety of the food, the quality of the food, all these are mandates that have been given to the FDA. If you read that 851, part 7, that is a clear mandate of the FDA. We work closely with these institutions. At Marwako, if you check with the Metropolitan Assembly on this particular issue, we've collaborated with them. If you look at our act, it talks about us collaborating with these entities. We collaborate with them. As he indicated, they are all over the place. But is that a solution to the problem? And I'm saying that this is a clear mandate of the FDA is mandated by the actual. And apart to the issue that we regulate drugs, we regulate food, yes, we regulate all of them, and we have persons, officers working in all these areas doing all this work. So we don't cross. There are people in drugs who are regulating drugs. There are people who are in medical devices regulating medical devices. And there are people in food regulating food. And food regulation is not just about manufacture. It's about how the food is served, where the food is provided, the convenience, the area in which even the food is served. So all that is part of FDA's mandate.
Yeah.
So we call it from farm to fork. This is the range in which FDA works. Meanwhile, we collaborate with all these agencies.
Now, you raised an important point. It's obvious that the FDA can't be everywhere all the time. So either the operators of the facilities themselves, or most important in this case, the customers are being vigilant. Your own vigilance is a key. I want to drive there a bit more. Let me bring in Edward Akanyamike again, the president of Ghana Hotels Association. So I visited a hotel, and I'm suspicious of what I'm being served. As a hotels association, what as a customer, what can I do? What should I do? What are you allowed to do in this circumstance? I mean, can I demand to see the kitchen of the restaurant in that hotel?
Well, Evans, that's a very interesting question, and I'm sure my friend in the studio will give a better response to that.
No, I know. At our association, I'm wondering whether you are welcoming of that scrutiny from your customers who come there.
Yes, Evans. You see, I think in the past year or so, the FDA, after giving the food hygiene permit, also instructs the hotels, I don't know about other enterprises, but they instruct the hotels to display the permit in the eating area, in the restaurant, okay, to ensure that all the customers see it. So if you are a customer, what it means is that you should look out for this certificate from the FDA that gives you the information that the place has been assessed and issued with the permit.
Well, let me bust your bubble. Let me bust your bubble. Marwako, the East Legon branch, they had the certificate, right?
No,
Yes, I was going to get to that. Yes,
Go on. Yes, go on.
The permit is one thing, and then the other things that we're talking about is another. But you see, it's a tricky area because you can imagine if you start allowing customers into your food preparation area to do the inspection, they are not mandated to do that inspection. It has to be done by the properly mandated personnel or officials to do that. So that will be difficult to allow to happen because even that the FDA itself will come and then create problems for you. But you see, Evans, I would have wished that my good friend would have supported this reinspection thing with data. Okay, because if he says that there are random checks and random inspection, it would have been very nice to see that in this year we had this number of normal annual renewal visits, and then we had this number where there was reinspection, and that number where there has been random inspection. Because we have over 4,000, at the moment we have over 4,000 hotels in Ghana. Over 4,000. Okay. And we appreciate that the human resource of FDA will be very difficult to do those random inspections that we're talking about. And that is why, Evans, we have been, as an association, we have been pushing that the regulatory bodies must make us worthy partners, okay, worthy collaborators in this whole business, not just food safety, but even the tourism authority license itself, even the EPA and all that, because we are on the ground and we are able to also exert peer pressure on our members. We could easily train our members to ensure that the right thing is done within that period that the FDA, quote unquote, is nowhere to be found after their annual inspection. So it's something that we've been pushing, but over the years, we have had this clear distinction between the public and the private, and they are there to enforce, and they just come in to do their thing. When they leave it to the industry to do their own thing, and then we'll maybe see some of these things.
Okay, so that is. I'll come to you and ask you about how you're bringing them in. But let me quickly bring in Richard. Richard is a victim of the Marwako incident. Richard, very quickly. You suffered. You were hospitalized. Was that the case? Hello, Richard. Please unmute for me. Please unmute, Richard. Can you hear me? Hello, Richard.
Okay.
Yes, I'm saying, were you hospitalized?
Hello.
Hello,
yes, please. That was exactly.
Sorry, Richard.
The case. I was actually a victim of the Mother's Day. I was a victim, actually.
Okay, so you were hospitalized.
I
okay,
was
so
have
you recovered fully now, obviously?
No.
Sorry?
I'm not fully recovered, and other health complications are setting. So I have not fully recovered from the poisoning thing. I would say percentage-wise, maybe 70%, but it have also truncated and resulted in some other health implications.
We have a terrible connection to him. Let's see if we can get him back on a good connection that we could hear him on, because I want to hear. He says he still has some. So that tells you how terrible this is. And the FDA report I mentioned in 2018 recorded 11 deaths from foodborne disease. 11. So this could lead to serious implications. And you've heard that the victim talking about still having implications. Let's go to one quick one about consumers. What do you look out for if you go to a restaurant to eat and you want to be sure the food you're eating is not one of poisoned? Well, what do you do? Apart from looking at the certificate that's been displayed.
Yeah. Looking at the certificate, being sure that the place has a hygiene permit is very important.
Okay, so that's the
if
first
you
one.
can't find one, ask for it. And if you
So
can't,
ask for the hygiene permit.
yes,
Look for it or ask for it.
If you don't find it, then you can advise yourself. And then you can also inform the FDA.
If you find it,
One, it's a good step. You have a certain comfort that you can eat from here. But again, you need to look at the circumstances, the environment. If the environment is not, to the best of your knowledge, hygienic enough, you don't necessarily have to eat.
have you been to the Marwako East Legon?
I've never been to any of their
The environment in which you sit and eat, it's pristine.
Yeah, so I'm coming to.
So as for that,
yeah, so I'm saying that it's one of the things you also have to look for. Then you also have to look.
But the problem is in the kitchen. No,
yes, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
The other point is about the staff that is serving you.
Okay.
You also have to look at the hygienic nature of the staff, that the way they serve, the way they even carry the food to you. If you are supposed to eat food and you are served food, one of the things you also have to look at is if the food is supposed to be hot or warm, you have to make sure that the food is hot or warm before you consume. If they are giving you food that is not, of course, then you need to be mindful of what you are consuming. That is one. You do not have the chance to visit
the kitchen.
kitchen.
That is where the whole thing.
You may want to ask to visit the facility. Most people will not allow you to go to the, because you will not be properly attired to even go to the kitchen. But you need to look at the environment. It is very important. It tells you a lot. What happens in the kitchen, of course, you will not know. It's FDA or the regulator that enters the facility. But you can ask. If you are allowed to, why not? But you may not be allowed to. But I'm saying that the hygiene permit gives you enough confidence.
Yeah,
that
but Marwako East Legon had a hygiene permit.
it has an expired hygiene permit. That is
The East Legon branch.
Yes.
Okay.
It has an expired.
As at the time the incident happened.
Yes, it has expired, and they are aware of it. So the process for renewal should have started earlier. So that is what. It is one of the reasons that they sent us a request to, because we knew that this one has expired, and because they wanted to bring all the others into line. That is why they applied. That is why we went to the Sprinters Road a day
So
or
what
two
you're saying
before.
is that the customers who also bought the food also failed in their responsibility to have, because if they had inspected, they would have known that the thing was expired.
But we will not put too much.
No, I get it. I'm saying we've explored your role.
Yes.
But I'm saying that you are the one putting the food in your belly.
So you also have there's
You have a
something we call
responsibility.
there's something we call self-regulation.
Yes. So you're saying that if they had gone and they asked, Marwako, let me see, and they found that it's expired, that should have been red flag.
Yes, that, and then we could have alerted FDA as well.
Yeah.
So, but
FDA, how in God's name you knew it was expired and you still allow them to sell food to the public?
Let me say this: the renewal is a process.
No, but once it's expired,
Yes.
it's expired.
It is expired.
So they stop serving the food.
It is a process.
Why do you have to? If my driver's license has expired, the police stops me, I'm arrested.
No, but you see,
You have to renew it
Yes.
before the expiration day.
Yes.
But you are telling me that
That is-
Marwako failed to renew it before, and they were serving food when
Evans.
the thing had expired. You allowed them.
Evans, that is what happens. If you issue you this license
Yeah.
with a permit, it is indicated on a permit that starts renewal 3 months before.
And they didn't.
Yes, but most of them do not do it that
So
way.
you
What
are
happens
you
is
are
that-
responsible.
Yes, we are
for what
responsible for
happened.
that. We are responsible for what?
What happened? Yes, because
No.
you said they have to start the process 3 months.
Yes.
They didn't.
Yes, they did it.
They waited for it to expire.
Yes.
And they were still selling food with expired license.
That is what happened.
Yes, because you
They were-
failed.
No, we did not fail. That's what I'm telling you. We have been there.
No.
We've been there.
Were they selling food with expired license or not?
They were selling food with expired license.
So you failed.
Not that we failed. What happens is I'm saying that the renewal is a process. Indeed, we should have done that before.
Does the law say that renew before expiration?
Yes.
So you failed.
I'm coming.
You allowed them to sell with expired license.
Evans, yes, they were selling with expired license.
Yes.
But we were we've been there.
But you owe the customers an apology. Because if you're done your work, there's no way Marwako should have sold that food that day.
But
to the
let me
people.
explain to you.
We run out of time actually.
Let me
In 30 seconds, if you can.
FDA was in the process, and that the renewal is always a process that once you get into the process, You will look out for things that can create problems for you.
Yeah.
Until then, you allow the facility
But
to run.
once you've admitted that they should not be selling food with an expired license, but they did, would you at least say to your people who ate the food, that you're sorry, you'll do better next time?
We are in the process of ensuring that all these. I'm coming. I'll get to your point.
Yeah.
We're in the process of ensuring that these issues that we are saying comes up when facilities have licenses.
No problem. But in the Marwako case, people are. The man just told us that he's still suffering. Would you at least apologize to him?
It's not the facility that the institution that has to apologize.
Yeah.
To them is the facility that sold the food to them. We sympathize. We sympathize sincerely with those who went through that process.
But if you had done your job, that wouldn't have happened.
No, that is not about we having not done our job. The facility that was supposed to have handled that, we were supervising the process to ensure that that thing is corrected. That incident has happened.
Yeah, but you admit there was a failure, some failure on your part.
We sympathize very much with those who went through the process. It is because of that. That's why we are going through this process.
No problem. But you admit that there was a failure on your part at least.
Not a failure
because
as
you
it
allowed
were.
them to operate with an expired license.
Not that there was a failure on our part. We were in the process of correcting something that has.
No problem.
And that is what we sincerely sympathize, as it were, with the people, what they went through, and we ensure that things like that do not happen again. That is why we are going through this current process.
Joseph Benny, I'm grateful that you joined me. Enjoy the rest of your evening, people.